There is a specific kind of gloom that settles over Northern California in the winter. It's not the white, clean cold of the East Coast. It's a heavy, gray dampness that seeps into the redwood siding of the old houses and turns the dirt roads into clay-colored slurry. We live right in the heart of the old gold rush territory, a region where the history is as rough as the landscape. It's a place where people value their privacy, sometimes aggressively so. You get used to it. You get used to the fact that your neighbor might be a retired tech millionaire or a guy who hasn't left his property since 1995. Earlier this year, on a rare Tuesday off, my wife Sarah and I decided to drive about an hour north to check out a small gun show at the county fairgrounds. I'm 30, I work in construction management, and we have a daughter who was just 6 months old at the time. Honestly, we just wanted to get out of the house. The rainy season had been relentless, and cabin fever was setting in. The gun show was typical for the area, held in a drafty exhibition hall that smelled of gun oil, stale coffee, and wet wool. It wasn't a political rally, it was just a flea market for guys who like mechanics. Tables piled high with rusted parts, boxes of antique ammo, beef jerky vendors, and old men swapping stories about deer season. I know a few of the promoters, so we walked right in, carrying the baby in a front-facing carrier. She was and is a magnet. You know how some babies just stare at people? She smiles. She has this shock of dark hair and big eyes, and in a room full of grumpy old-timers, she was like a little beacon of happiness. We spent the first hour just drifting. I was looking for a specific bolt for an old rifle I was restoring. Sarah was looking for anything that wasn't a diaper bag. It felt normal, safe, the kind of mundane Tuesday you forget by Wednesday. But the crowd here was dense. The aisles were narrow, created by folding tables arranged in a maze-like grid. You had to shuffle to get anywhere, and because you're moving so slow, you start to recognize the people moving against the current.
That's how I first noticed him. He was an older man, maybe in his late 60s, wearing a faded utility jacket and a ball cap that had lost its shape years ago. He didn't look dangerous. He looked like half the other guys in the room, weather-beaten, gray-stubbled, blending into the beige and camo aesthetic of the show. We were near the back wall, looking at a table of leather holsters when he stopped us. "That is a beautiful baby," he said. His voice was raspier than I expected, but his tone was polite, enthusiastic even. I smiled, doing the dad nod. "Thank you, she's a happy one." Most people say cute baby and keep walking. He didn't. He stepped closer, invading that invisible bubble of personal space you try to keep in a crowd. He leaned in, looking right at her face, ignoring me and Sarah entirely. "Look at those eyes," he said, alert. "She's healthy, you can tell." He looked up at me then, and his expression was intense, not aggressive, but focused, like he was studying a spec sheet rather than a child. "I used to work in EMS," he said, tapping his chest. "Emergency medical. You see a lot of bad things in that line. Sick kids, hurt kids. It's nice to see one that's perfect." It was a weird thing to say, but in the moment I wrote it off. People say awkward things to new parents all the time. I nodded again. "Yeah, we're lucky. Have a good one." I tried to pivot, to signal the conversation was over. He didn't move. He stood there for another 2 seconds, which feels like a lifetime in a conversation, just staring at her. "How old?" he asked. 6 months, Sarah said, tightening her grip on the carrier slightly. 6 months, he repeated. He looked at the carrier straps. "She sits up good? Strong neck?" "Yes," I said, stepping slightly between him and Sarah. "She's strong." "That's good," he said. "You have to be careful in crowds like this. Viruses, crazy people. You never know who's breathing on her." The irony of his statement didn't hit me until later. At the time, I just thought he was a germaphobe. He finally blinked, smiled a tight, flat smile, and stepped aside. "You take care of her," he said. "She's precious."
"You don't want to lose something like that." We walked away. Sarah leaned into me and whispered, "That was a lot." "Just an eccentric old guy," I said. "Probably misses his grandkids, or he's lonely." But as the afternoon wore on, the feeling of eccentric started to curdle into something else. I saw him again 10 minutes later, 2 aisles over. He wasn't looking at the tables. He was walking against the flow of traffic, eyes scanning the crowd. When he saw us, he didn't wave. He just stopped, watched us pass, and then turned to follow a parallel aisle. He wasn't browsing, he was tracking. 20 minutes later, I saw him a third time, We were by the exit, grabbing a soda. He was standing near the door, hands in his pockets, just lurking. Not buying, not talking, watching. He was looking at the exit, then looking at us, then looking at the exit again, calculating. I remember feeling a prickle of irritation. Stop staring at my kid, I thought. But again, I didn't say anything. We were in a public place with security and deputies wandering around. It felt paranoid to make a scene because a guy was looking. Then the baby started to fuss. It was the hungry fuss, the low-pitched whine that precedes the siren. Sarah checked her watch. "She's starving," she said. "It's too loud in here to feed her. I'm going to run out to the car." "You want me to come?" I asked. She looked at the rain streaking the windows. "No, you stay. Find your rifle part. I'll just be 20 minutes. I'll text you when I'm done." We walked to the door together. I watched her jog through the drizzle to our SUV, which was parked in the second row, maybe 50 yards away. I saw her get in, saw the lights flash as she locked it. I turned back to the show. I didn't see the older man by the door anymore. I assumed he had left. I was wrong. I went back to the tables, but my focus was shot. I kept checking my phone. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The exhibition hall was loud, a constant drone of haggling and laughter. But outside, the parking lot was dead quiet. It was a Tuesday afternoon in winter. The lot wasn't full.
There were clusters of trucks, empty spaces, and gray asphalt slick with rain. I found a friend of mine, a guy named Mike who sells vintage scopes, and stood talking to him to kill time. "You find what you needed?" Mike asked. "Not yet," I said. "Sarah's feeding the baby. I'm just waiting." While we talked, I noticed movement near the front entrance. 3 sheriff's deputies who had been drinking coffee and chatting near the ticket booth for the last hour suddenly stood up. They didn't run, but they moved with that specific, tightened urgency that law enforcement has when the radio chatter changes. They walked briskly out the front doors, putting on their hats, adjusting their belts. "Wonder what that's about," Mike said. "Probably someone parked in the fire lane," I joked. My phone rang. It was Sarah. I answered, expecting her to say she was done. "Hey, are you heading back in?" I asked. Her voice was an octave too high, breathless, shaking. "Come outside," she said. "Right now. Just come outside." "What's wrong?" "The police are here. They have him. Just come." I dropped the rifle part I was holding on Mike's table and ran. I didn't say goodbye. I sprinted for the doors, pushed past the ticket taker who tried to stamp my hand, and burst out into the cold air. The scene in the parking lot stopped me dead. Our SUV was surrounded. 2 sheriff's cruisers were pulled up at aggressive angles, boxing in the space behind our car. The 3 deputies I'd seen earlier were there, plus 2 more. They had a man pressed against the hood of a patrol car. He was cuffed. It was the EMS guy. I ran to our car. Sarah was sitting in the driver's seat, door open now, clutching the baby so hard her knuckles were white. She was crying, silent, shocked tears. "Are you okay?" I asked, grabbing her shoulder. "Did he touch you?" "No," she choked out. "He couldn't get the door open." I looked at the man. He wasn't looking at the baby anymore. He was staring at the ground, his face a mask of sullen anger. A deputy walked over to me. He looked rattled. "Is this your husband, ma'am?" he asked Sarah. She nodded.
"You need to hear this," the deputy said to me, "because your wife just saved herself and your kid from something very bad." He walked us through it. Sarah had gotten into the back seat to feed the baby. We have these mesh window shades, black suction cup blinds that block out the sun and give her privacy. From the outside, you can't see in. From the inside, it's dim. She had locked the doors, she had turned on the heater, she had started nursing. For the first few minutes, it was fine. The rain on the roof was loud, it masked the sound of footsteps. But then she felt it, a presence. It wasn't a sound, it was a change in the light. A shadow that fell across the rear passenger window and stayed there. It blocked the gray winter light filtering through the mesh. She stopped moving. She held her breath. She looked at the gap between the window shade and the door frame, a tiny sliver of clear glass. She saw a button, a faded zipper, a utility jacket pressed right up against the glass. Someone was standing directly against the rear door. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't trying to get her attention. He was standing there, listening, waiting. He was so close she could see the fabric of his jacket move as he breathed. She saw his hand move. He was holding something metallic, a flashlight. He raised it, trying to shine it through the crack in the tent to see inside. He was trying to verify she was there, to verify she was alone. Sarah told me later that in that moment she didn't feel brave. She felt small. She was trapped in a metal box with a baby attached to her,
and a stranger was inches away, separated only by a lock that could be broken. She didn't scream. She didn't unlock the car. She slowly, quietly reached for her phone and dialed 911. Her hands were shaking so bad she almost dropped it. But before she could hit send, a cruiser rolled up. The deputy told me the rest, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We spotted him inside," he said. "The guys at the ticket booth. They noticed he was following you. He'd loop around, watch your family, then loop back. He wasn't looking at the merchandise. He was looking at patterns."
When your wife left with the baby, he waited exactly 30 seconds, timed it on his watch, and then followed her out. The deputies inside had radioed the patrol car in the lot. "Keep an eye on the female with the infant," they said. "Subject is following." The patrol car was on the other side of the lot, checking a suspicious van. By the time the deputy drove over, the man was already at our car. He was pressed against the door, hand on the handle, flashlight in the other hand. When the cruiser pulled up, the man jumped back. He tried to play it cool. He told the deputy he was just asking for directions. He told the deputy he thought he knew the woman inside. The deputy asked Sarah to roll down the window. "Do you know this man?" "No," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I've never met him. He was following us inside." The deputy asked for ID. The man gave a name, John Smith, or something equally generic. The deputy ran it. No record. But the deputy, older guy, instincts honed by 20 years of rural policing, didn't buy it. He saw the sweat on the man's upper lip. He saw the way the man kept glancing at the open space of the lot, looking for a running lane. He saw the way the man's hand kept drifting toward his pocket. "Step away from the vehicle," the deputy said, resting his hand on his holster. That's when the man tried to rabbit. He spun and sprinted toward the tree line. He made it about 10 steps before the other deputies, the ones who had come from inside, cut him off. They tackled him on the wet asphalt. It wasn't gentle. I saw the mud on his face later. When they searched his pockets, they found his real wallet. His name wasn't John Smith. And when they ran his real name, the radio dispatcher's voice changed. "Felony warrants," the deputy said to me, his voice low. "Multiple counts, kidnapping, solicitation of a minor. He's wanted in Oregon and Nevada. He's been off the grid for 3 years." I felt the blood drain out of my face. My legs went numb. The world tilted sideways. "Kidnapping?" I whispered. "He was waiting," the deputy said. "He was waiting for the car to be isolated. He was waiting for you to be gone."
He had a glass breaker in his other pocket, a spring-loaded center punch. He could have popped that window in a second. I looked at our car, the window where Sarah had been sitting, the thin sheet of glass that had separated my daughter from a man who had done this before. If the deputies hadn't been watching, if Sarah had unlocked the door to ask him what he wanted, if the cruiser had been 2 minutes slower. The man was in the back of the car now, staring straight ahead. He didn't look crazy. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a grandpa. He looked like a guy who would help you change a tire. He looked like someone you'd hold a door for. That was the scariest part, the camouflage of normalcy. We gave our statements, we signed the paperwork. The deputies thanked us for being calm, though neither of us felt calm. I felt like I was going to vomit. Sarah was trembling so hard she couldn't sign her name at first. I drove home in silence. Sarah sat in the back with the baby, refusing to put her back in the car seat, just holding her. Every time I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the headlights of the cars behind us, and my heart hammered. Every shadow looked like him. Every car looked like it was following us. We didn't go to another gun show that year. We didn't go anywhere for a while. And even now, when we're in a parking lot, I check the shadows. I watch the people who are walking against the flow. Because you never know who is watching you back, and you never know who is just waiting for you to be alone. Sometimes I replay the timeline in my head. I think about what would have happened if the deputies had been 2 minutes slower. I think about the glass breaker in his pocket. It takes less than a second to shatter a window. He could have been in the car before Sarah even had time to unlatch the baby carrier. And then what? We were in a rural county. The fairgrounds are surrounded by open fields and highways that lead into the mountains. If he had gotten them into a car, if he had taken them, I don't let myself finish that thought. We live in a world where we're taught to be polite.
We're taught to answer questions when people ask. We're taught not to be rude to older men who just want to see the baby. But that day taught me something else. It taught me that politeness can be a vulnerability. It taught me that nice is just a behavior, not a character trait. Now, when we go out, I'm not just looking for the exit. I'm looking for the guy who's too interested. I'm looking for the person moving against the grain. And I don't care about being rude anymore. If something feels wrong, we leave. We don't wait for the evidence. We just go. Because the only reason my daughter is sleeping in her crib tonight, instead of being a file on a detective's desk, is because a few deputies decided to pay attention, and my wife decided to trust the hair standing up on the back of her neck.